What if everything we thought we knew about Fromville was wrong? For 4 seasons, the town has convinced us that the monsters are the biggest threat. But after episode 7, I'm starting to think the monsters were never the real enemy. The clues hidden throughout this episode point towards something much older, much smarter, and far more dangerous than anything we've seen before. This episode doesn't just answer questions. It creates bigger ones. Why is the man in yellow suddenly becoming more active? What exactly happened inside Henry's vision? Why are the townspeople beginning to split into opposing sides? And most importantly, are Jade and Tabitha unknowingly leading everyone toward another massacre? Because if the clues in this episode are telling us anything, it's that history is about to repeat itself. And the scariest part? The town might already be falling into the exact trap that destroyed the previous cycle. Let's break it all down. The episode opens with tensions spreading through the town faster than ever before. For the first time, people aren't just scared of the monsters outside. They're starting to fear each other. This might seem like a small development, but it could become one of the most important storylines of the season. Throughout the history of Fromville, we have seen the town survive because people worked together. Even when food was running out, when monsters were attacking, and when mysterious forces were manipulating everyone, the residents still had a common enemy. But now that is changing. The reincarnation revelations surrounding Jade and Tabitha have created doubt among the townspeople. Some believe they are the key to saving everyone. Others believe they are responsible for everything that has gone wrong. And honestly, that's exactly what the hidden force behind this place wants. Think about what Sophia has been doing all season. Every action she takes seems designed to create division. She doesn't attack people directly. Instead, she plants ideas. She whispers doubts. She creates fear. This is why her conversation with Kenny earlier in the season becomes much more important after episode 7. Sophia understands something that most of the characters don't. A divided town is easier to control. The monsters can only kill a few people at a time. Fear, however, can destroy an entire community. This is why I believe we're witnessing the early stages of another cycle collapse. Victor has repeatedly warned everyone that terrible events happened before the massacre he survived. The massacre wasn't the beginning of the disaster. It was the final result. Something caused the townspeople to turn against each other first. And now we're seeing those exact same warning signs appear again. The strongest evidence comes from Victor himself. Throughout the episode, Victor seems deeply concerned about Ethan. At first, this appears emotional because of Tabitha's connection to Miranda. But I think there's something much bigger happening. Victor may recognize Ethan's role in the cycle. For years, fans have assumed Ethan was simply a special child because of his connection to the stories and quests. But episode 7 suggests he may be much more important than that. What if every cycle has a child survivor? Victor survived the previous catastrophe. Now Ethan could be the designated survivor of the current one. That would explain why Victor keeps paying close attention to him. It would also explain why Victor often speaks to Ethan differently than he speaks to everyone else. Almost as if he's preparing him for something. And if that's true, it creates a terrifying possibility. Maybe the town isn't trying to prevent the cycle. Maybe the cycle is designed to continue. Every generation gets its own Jade. Every generation gets its own Tabitha. Every generation gets its own child survivor. And every generation eventually reaches the same tragic ending. The more clues we get, the more it feels like the town is operating according to a script that has already been written. Which brings us to Henry. His vision may be one of the most important scenes in the entire episode. At first glance, it looks like a simple hallucination. But there are several details that make it feel different from previous visions. The hospital setting immediately stands out. Unlike many of the supernatural visions we've seen before, this one feels grounded in reality. Henry isn't seeing monsters. He isn't seeing impossible creatures. He's seeing what appears to be the normal world. And that is exactly why it is so dangerous. The entity behind this place has always manipulated people through hope, not fear. Hope. Giving Boyd answers. Giving Tabitha visions. Giving Jade clues. Giving Sarah voices that promised a way home. Every major manipulation has involved offering someone what they desperately wanted. So, ask yourself this. What does Henry want more than anything? He wants his family back. He wants proof that this nightmare isn't real. He wants to believe that there's a way to wake up. And suddenly he receives a vision that offers exactly that. That can't be a coincidence. I believe Henry's vision is bait. A carefully designed trap intended to push him toward a specific decision later in the season. And if Henry starts convincing other people that the town is just a dream, the consequences could be catastrophic. Because we've already seen what happened when Abby believed that theory. People died. And the most frightening part is that Henry might become the perfect person to spread that idea throughout the town. Now, let's talk about the moment that completely changed how we should view Fatima's storyline. For most of the season, it felt like Fatima's connection to Smiley was simply another strange mystery. We knew something was wrong after she gave birth to him. We knew there was some kind of supernatural bond between them. But episode 7 reveals that this connection may be far more powerful than anyone imagined. When Kenny becomes trapped and surrounded by monsters, everything appears lost. The monsters are prepared. They know Boyd's plan. They have already blocked every possible escape route. And that's important because it confirms something many fans have suspected for a long time. The creatures are not mindless predators. They communicate. They strategize. They coordinate. Someone warned them. Someone gave them advanced knowledge of Boyd's plan. And all evidence points directly toward Sophia. This makes Sophia even more dangerous than the monsters themselves. The monsters can only attack at night. Sophia can influence events at any time. She doesn't need claws or teeth because information itself has become her weapon. Think about how many disasters in Fromville began with somebody being manipulated. Sarah heard voices. Elgin received visions. Boyd followed mysterious clues. Tabitha followed dreams. Now Sophia seems capable of creating chaos simply by guiding people towards certain decisions. And that's exactly what happened during the failed monster hunt. Everything was arranged perfectly. Boyd believed the totem would kill the creatures. Kenny stepped forward to help. The town finally felt like it had a chance to fight back. But what if the entire plan was doomed from the beginning? The biggest clue comes from the fact that the totem never works against the monsters. This is a detail many viewers might overlook because they're focused on Kenny's survival. But let's think about it carefully. The totem successfully destroyed the nightmare dolls. So, why don't they work against the creatures? The simplest answer is that different supernatural entities require different weaknesses. This means the monsters are not the same type of being as the dolls. And that opens a massive new mystery. What exactly are these creatures? For years fans have called them monsters. But what if they're actually something much more specific? Notice how every major supernatural threat in Fromville seems connected to a different set of rules. The music box had its own weakness. The dolls had their own weakness. The cicadas followed their own rules. Now the monsters appear to have another. It's almost like every nightmare belongs to a different category. And if that's true, then someone created these categories. Someone designed the rules. Someone built the game. That idea becomes even more interesting when we look at Jade's tunnel investigation. Throughout the episode, Jade continues mapping the underground tunnels. At first, this seems like a practical mission. He's trying to understand where the creatures live. But I think the tunnels represent something much bigger. The tunnels may actually be the physical structure of the cycle itself. Think about how often the show uses labyrinth imagery. Characters get lost. Roads loop endlessly. Journeys circle back to where they started. The entire town functions like a maze. So, what if the underground tunnels are the original maze? What if every cycle expands from that underground network? That would explain why the creatures guard it so fiercely. It would also explain why the children's remains seem connected to the tunnels. Whatever happened centuries ago may have started there. And if Jade successfully maps the entire network, he might finally discover the origin point of everything, which is exactly why the entity may be trying so hard to stop him. But while Jade searches below ground, another mystery is growing above it. The mystery of the Golem. At first glance, the Golem appears to be helping the town. Its influence saves Kenny's life. Fatima's connection to Smiley creates a moment of hesitation. And for a brief second, it looks like the town may finally have an advantage. But longtime fans know From never gives its characters easy victories. Every gift comes with a price. Every solution creates a new problem. And that is why the Golem worries me. The episode quietly reminds us of something important about Golem mythology. A Golem begins as a protector, but eventually it becomes uncontrollable. That's the part most people forget. The danger isn't when the Golem is weak. The danger comes when it grows stronger. And episode 7 gives us several hints that Fatima's connection is evolving rapidly. She doesn't just sense Smiley anymore. She affects him. She interrupts him. She changes his behavior. That's a huge leap forward. The question is how far this ability can grow. Could Fatima eventually control Smiley? Could she control multiple creatures? Could she see everything the monsters see? And, perhaps most importantly, could the monsters eventually control her? Because connections work both ways. If Fatima can enter their world, then they may be able to enter hers. The show deliberately leaves this possibility hanging over the entire episode. And I don't think that's accidental. I believe Fatima is becoming one of the most important pieces on the board. Not because she will destroy the monsters, but because she may become the bridge between humanity and whatever these creatures truly are. And if that bridge breaks, the consequences could be worse than anything we've seen so far. Which brings us to one final clue hidden beneath all the action. The town is changing, not physically, psychologically. Fear used to unite people. Now fear is dividing them. Some trust Jade. Others don't. Some trust Tabitha. Others think she's dangerous. Some want answers. Others want everyone to stop searching. That division is growing stronger with every episode. And if history really is repeating itself, then this conflict may become even deadlier than the monsters waiting outside after dark. Now we need to talk about what might be the most disturbing storyline in episode 7. Roger's resurrection. Because the more I think about it, the more I believe this scene reveals a hidden truth about how death actually works in Fromville. For years, fans have debated whether people truly die in this place. Some believe death is an escape. Others believe death simply moves you into another stage of the nightmare. Episode 7 gives us evidence that the answer may be far more complicated. Sophia's ritual begins with something that looks simple on the surface. Eggs. Blood. A dead body. But From has never used symbolism randomly. Every object matters. Every ritual means something. And this ritual feels incredibly ancient. The moment blood appears inside the egg, it becomes clear that Sophia isn't creating life. She's transferring it. That's a very important distinction. Life is not being created from nothing. Life is being moved from one source to another. This connects directly to the show's larger mythology. Remember what we've learned about the sacrificed children. Their deaths supposedly granted immortality to others. A life exchanged for another life. A sacrifice. A transaction. The same pattern keeps appearing throughout the story. The town seems to operate on balance. For something to be gained, something must be lost. For someone to survive, someone else suffers. For answers to appear, consequences follow. Knowledge comes at a cost. The show has repeated that warning over and over again. And I think Roger's resurrection is another example of that rule. Because when Roger returns, he doesn't come back as himself. He comes back as something broken, something twisted, something unnatural. Almost like a corrupted version of life itself. This may be one of the biggest clues we've ever received about the monsters. What if the creatures were never born as monsters? What if they were once ordinary people who were changed through a similar process? Imagine an ancient ritual that promised immortality. Imagine frightened people agreeing to sacrifice children in exchange for eternal life. Now imagine that promise going horribly wrong. Instead of becoming immortal humans, they became something else. Something trapped between life and death. Something forced to exist forever. Suddenly the monsters make much more sense. Their human appearance, their strange smiles, their intelligence, their ability to remember. Everything begins fitting together. And if that's true, then the monsters themselves may be victims. Not innocent victims, but victims nonetheless. victims of the original bargain that created Fromville. While Colony House deals with the chaos of Roger's return, another mystery continues growing in the background. The mystery of the man in yellow. Episode 7 quietly drops several clues that suggest he may be much older and much more important than we originally believed. The pouch of teeth is especially disturbing. At first it looks like another creepy detail, but think about what it actually represents. Each tooth belonged to a victim. Each tooth represents a life taken, a cycle completed. And judging by the condition of the pouch, this collection could span generations, possibly centuries. That changes everything, because it suggests the man in yellow isn't simply participating in the cycle. He may be overseeing it, watching it, managing it, almost like a caretaker of the nightmare. This raises an even bigger question. Who is Sophia really working for? Many viewers assume Sophia and the man in yellow are working together. But what if that's not true? What if Sophia serves the town itself, and the man in yellow serves something even higher? Notice how Sophia seems focused on creating suffering, creating fear, creating division. But the man in yellow appears connected to the cycle as a whole, almost like he's protecting the larger system. If that's true, then there may be multiple forces operating inside Fromville. Not one enemy, several. And they may not even share the same goals. This would explain why different supernatural events sometimes feel disconnected from each other. Different entities, different agendas, different rules, all trapped inside the same nightmare. Now, let's return to Henry because I think episode 7 is secretly preparing him for a massive role in the second half of the season. Everything about his vision feels designed to push him toward a dangerous conclusion. That conclusion being that none of this is real. And if Henry starts believing that, he could become incredibly influential. Think about it. He's one of the few people connected to both the outside world and the current cycle. People trust him.
People listen to him.
And he's already questioning Tabitha's connection to Miranda. If Henry begins convincing others that Jade and Tabitha are wrong, the town could fracture completely. This may be exactly what Sophia wants. Because once people stop working together, they become easier to manipulate. Victor seems to understand this danger better than anyone. That's why his scenes feel so heavy throughout the episode. Victor has seen this before. He knows where this road leads. And his fear tells us something important. The massacre isn't just a possibility anymore. It's becoming a probability. Which brings us to my biggest theory coming out of episode 7. I don't think the season is building toward defeating the monsters. I think it's building toward stopping another cycle collapse. Those are two completely different goals. The monsters are only one symptom of the problem. The real threat is the cycle itself. The repeating story. The repeating tragedy. The repeating sacrifice. Everything seems to point toward history trying to repeat itself once again. Another divided town. Another failed search for answers. Another child survivor. Another massacre waiting to happen. The question is whether Jade and Tabitha can finally break the pattern before it's too late. Because if they fail, episode May 7th be remembered as the exact moment everything started falling apart. The moment the town stopped fighting the darkness outside and started fighting itself. And honestly, that's what makes the ending of this episode so terrifying. The monsters are still out there. The man in yellow is becoming more active. Sophia's plans are accelerating. The town is dividing. And Victor looks more worried than ever. All the pieces are moving into place. The only question now is who survives when the next phase of the cycle begins. And judging by the clues hidden throughout episode 7, that phase may be closer than anyone realizes.